Just like section 1.2, section 1.3 in subtraction is pretty straightforward, but there are a couple of things that I do want to mention. First of all, the word difference. The answer to a subtraction problem is known as the difference. And once again, that is a very important thing for you to know. So if you were given the problem 7 subtract 4 is equal to 3, 3 is known as the difference of 7 and 4. And once again, that is important for you to know throughout this course and in any of the other subsequent courses. One other thing to make note of is that even though there is a commutative property of addition, there is not a commutative property of subtraction. In other words, 8 minus 5 does not equal 5 minus 8. 8 minus 5 is equal to 3, while 5 subtract 8 gives you a negative 3. So there is no property known as the commutative property of subtraction. For that same reason, there is not an associative property of subtraction. So please just keep that in mind. Before continuing, I'd like you to do a mental math problem with subtraction. Let's say that you were somewhere without a calculator, paper, pencil, or anything at all like that, and you were asked 120 subtract 91. Take a moment and tell me how you would figure out, or think about how you would figure out that answer. Okay, so 120 minus 91. I am going to write it down right now. 120 minus 91. So as you were figuring that out mentally, how did you go out doing that? Did you do 120 in your head, subtract 91 in your head, and go through that regrouping process in your head? You know, you can't take the 1 from 0, so you need to cross out the 2, make that a 1, and make the 1's place now equal to 10. 10 minus 1 gives you 9. You can't take 9 from 1 in the 10's place, so you cross out the 1 in the 100's place, make that a 0, which means now you have 11 10s. 11 minus 9 gives you 2. Is that the way that you did it in your head? You kind of did that in the air, let's say, as you were figuring that out? Well, you can certainly go through and do that. I would say, though, that if I was given the problem 120 minus 91, and I just need to figure out mentally, I probably wouldn't do that. Instead, I'd go through and I'd just do the adding up process. I know that I'm at 91 to start with. So I'm going to say, well, how much do I need to get to a landmark number? A landmark number usually ends in 0. Well, if I'm at 91, I know if I add 9 to that, I'm going to add 9 to that, that's going to give me 100. So now I'm at 100 and I need to get to 120. How much more do I need to get to 120? Well, I need 20 more. So if I add 20 to that, I'm going to get my 120. And then all I have to do is put together the two numbers that I added together. 9 plus 20 gives me 29 for an answer. Now, I went through and did that. It's kind of detailed and everything there, but that's what I would be doing in my head. It's just first of all adding 9 and then adding another 20 and putting those together. This is known as the adding up way of doing subtraction, and that will certainly work as you go through and do it, although it does get a little bit tedious at times. Here's another subtraction problem, 137 minus 88, and I'm going to do this by the adding up strategy I just talked about. I am at 88, so I need to get to 137. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 to that. Now remember, I'm kind of doing this in my head, so I'm kind of doing this detailed a little bit more on this on the screen, but I would try to be doing this in my head. So now I'm at 90. I still want to get to another landmark number. I know that if I add 10 more to that, now I'm going to be to 100. So far I've added 2 and I've added 10, and now I need to get to 137. So now I'm going to add 37 more to that, and now I'm at my 137, and I added together the 2, the 10, and the 37. I can put those together in my head. 37 plus 10 gives me 47, plus 2 gives me an answer of 49. So 137 minus 88 has to give me 49 for an answer. Now, I could certainly, if I had paper, pencil, or if I want to do it in the air as I'm thinking, I could kind of go through and do that in my head as well. I know I can't take 8 from 7 in the ones place, so I'm going to have to do some regrouping. I'm going to take 1 away from the 3 tens and make it 2 tens, which means that 1 10 came over and added to the 7. So now I have 17. 17 subtract 8 gives me 9. And now I have to take 8 from 2 in the tens place. Once again, I can't do that, so I have to take 100 away, make that a 0, and make 10 tens, which is the same as that 100. I'm going to put that in the tens place. 12 subtract 8 gives me 4, so I get 49 that way too. I don't care which way you do it. Certainly the vast majority of people would do the problem what we call the traditional algorithm way of subtracting. But it is important to be able to do the adding up, especially for the easier type problems when you don't have paper, pencil, and a lot of times the adding up does get to be a little bit faster. Here's another example, and this is one that I could do adding up, but it gets pretty tedious, and this is a pretty long involved problem to do adding up, so I would probably do this the traditional algorithm method. So let me just mention this again. I'm looking at the ones place first. I can't take 7 from 2, so I'm going to end up regrouping. I have to take 1 10 away from the 5, make it a 4, and then I have a 12 in the ones place. 12 subtract 7 gives me 5. Then I can't take the 7 from the 4 in the tens place, so once again I have to regroup. It becomes a 2 in the hundreds place, and it becomes 14 in the tens place. 14 subtract 7 is 7. I come over to the hundreds place. I can't take 5 from 2, so I have to regroup in the thousands place, take 1,000 away, and make the hundreds place now a 12. 12 subtract 5 gives me 7. And then finally, 4 subtract 2 gives me 2. So I get an answer of 2,775 as the difference of those two numbers. Remember, whenever you're doing this, certainly you're taking a quiz or anything at all, you always want to check your answer and make sure that it does work. So I'm going to add these two numbers together, 2,775 plus 2,577, and I'm going to check and make sure. Let's see, 5 plus 7 gives me 12. Put down the 2, carry the 1. 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Put down the 5, carry the 1. 7 plus 5 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Put down the 3, carry the 1. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So I get 53, 52, which is what I started with. So it does check. The last type of problem I like to talk about in this section is when you're subtracting with a bunch of zeros. And the only thing I would say with this is please do it step by step. Sometimes I have people that just go through and they just change everything right from the get-go. And it sometimes will cause problems depending upon what the numbers are. So if I was going to go through and do this problem, I know that in the ones place I can't take 8 from 0. So I have to go over and borrow. But I can't borrow from the tens place because that's a 0. I can't borrow from the hundreds place. And so I have to go all the way over to the thousands place. So I'm going to change that to a 5. When I change that to a 5, that means that in the hundreds place I now have 10. Well, I come back still to that very first ones place. I still can't take 8 from 0. So I'm still going to go over and try and regroup, but I can't take anything out of the tens place yet. But now I can take 100 out of the hundreds place. And that becomes a 9, and it becomes a 10 now in the tens place. I still can't take 8 from 0 in the ones place, so now I'm going to change that to a 9 in the tens place, and now it becomes a 10 in the ones place, and now I can go through and I can do my subtraction. 10 minus 8 is 2, 9 minus 5 is 4, 9 minus 3 is 6, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So my answer is 3,642, which once again I could go through and I could check this by addition. As I mentioned at the beginning of this section is pretty straightforward once again, but as always, if you ever have any questions on anything or if I can help in any way, please let me know.